Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Infinite Magic Raid patch notes February 23rd. A bunch of changes coming to the game. Do they make any difference to you? Well, let's read through them and find out. Dear adventurers, Infinite Magic Raid will be officially updated on February 23rd. As of recording, that is today. In the new version, we've updated a lot of content. Let's go and check the event news. Event news! The specified hero type rate up event is available from February 24th to February 26th. You can turn on or off the event manually. The up mark for this session is the Force mark, bringing you an increased chance of pulling Nicholas, Nidrold, Garena, Barry, and Slackdow. In addition, epic heroes Rudolph, Holder, Anton, and Lester. And remember, this is your only way to get Nicholas and Rudolph, aside from the trio event thing, but I've done a video covering that before. So if you want these characters, this is your only chance to do it. I guess until next Christmas rolls around, but come on, guys, that's like 10 months from now. We're not planning 10 months ahead. That's insane. So the question is, are these characters any good? And if so, should you shell out all of your hard-earned runes to get them? The answer to the first question is yes. Yes, these characters are very good. Nicholas, obviously one of the most OP characters in the game. Everybody knows that. Nidrold, extraordinary damage, especially since they buffed all the bleed. Garena has a full team res. Barry can do incredible AoE damage as well. And Slackdow, especially when you get his exclusives up, is very, very powerful. In addition, of all of the epic characters in the game, these are 4 of the strongest. Rudolph is actually very, very strong. The biggest problem with Rudolph is that the only way to upgrade Rudolph is to have extra copies of Rudolph. You can't get the epic Phantom Dragon Eyes to upgrade him, nor can you find any copies of him outside of this event. But Holder, Anton, and Lester are 3 of everybody's favorite epic characters. So if you're interested, this is a great way to go. Now, we've talked about this before, but the next question is, what are the chances that you'll actually pull one of these heroes? Is it worth it for you to use your runes to try to get them? Basically, your chance of getting any one of these heroes in normal times is about 1.2%. When you pull a legendary champion, all things being equal, you have a 1 out of however many legendary champions there are chance to pull exactly the champion you want. So if you want Nidrold, there's 1 Nidrold out of roughly 80 legendary champions. That's 1 out of 80, which is roughly 1.2% chance to get him. During this event, the chances of pulling them goes up to about 8%. But that's 8% across the board. So you've got an 8% chance of pulling Nicholas, Nidrold, Garena, Barry, or Slackdow. So getting the 1 legendary champion that you want still has a relatively small chance to happen. But it is the highest chance you're going to get. So whether or not it's worth it to you to gamble on those odds is up to you, but all of these champions are very, very good. All of these champions are worth getting if you're interested in getting them. Do with that information what you will. 2. The Gift of Heaven event is coming for a limited time from February 28th to March 2nd. The goal reward of this session is Legendary Phantom Dragon Eyes. This is the event where if you spend upwards of 500 excellent runes, you get whatever that reward is at the end. Last time it was Sigmund. This time it is a Legendary Phantom Dragon Eye. Personally, I think that offering the Legendary Phantom Dragon Eye is a much better way to go, especially if they keep the price 500 runes, which is just extraordinarily high. Normally, the pity sets in at about 150 runes. Epic runes, that is. So you can imagine that what they're saying is if you spend the equivalent of 3 legendary characters worth of excellent runes, then we'll just give you a legendary Phantom Dragon Eye for free. So you get 3 legendary characters. You don't really know who they're going to be. They might be copies of ones you want. They might be new ones that you want, but they also might be garbage. But then we'll give you this thing that is objectively awesome because you can apply it to any legendary champion that you want outside of the exclusive ones. So is this better than it was before? Yes, this is much better than it was before. Is it good, though? Well, I don't know. There are always events running right now that require that you use your runes. So picking and choosing when to spend your runes and when to hoard your runes has become really difficult to do. That is very unfortunate because we don't have a calendar that looks far enough into the future to see if it would be better for you to spend all of your runes on this or better to save them for another event that you have coming up. That said, if you do have lots and lots of runes and there's no specific character that you want, but you need to upgrade all of your characters, then this is a way to do it. An expensive way to do it, but a way to do it. Do with that information what you will. Now, the biggest part of this update. Free hero regression is available from the 23rd to the 1st. The heroes that you can regress during the time include the following 7. Frick, Teru, Amalek, Elbeck, Anna, Eilot, and Olga. Only if you had them ahead of time. If you get them during this event, apparently there's some way that they can know that you got it during the event and you can't regress it, but I digress. The reason why this is relevant is because all 7 of these characters are getting buffed. We're going to talk about that because they're all getting really, really significant buffs. The reward hero for next session's hero quest is Anna. Check it out. Anna getting a rework, and she's going to be the one that you all get for free. Is that going to be worth it? We'll find out in a second. They've added some features. They're adding a weight-free refresh to the non-stop combat feature in the arena. I don't even use the non-stop combat feature, but if you do, this is going to be nice. Add recommended heroes to Elemental City. This is irrelevant because there's only one recommended hero for Elemental City, and it is Nicholas. Good luck. 3, optimize the logic of locking heroes. Festival exclusive epic heroes are now locked automatically when obtained. I don't think anyone's going to really notice the difference. Optimize the headlines of exclusive emblem, aura, and sub interfaces to the corresponding heroes. Yeah, sure, why not? Added the day and night mode to the main city interface. You can switch between them manually in the settings. Cool, but I don't think this is anything that people were crying about, so why? Added quick back to the UIs. This is nice, actually, so that you can go back, so you can navigate more efficiently instead of having to go back several times in order to find the menu you want. Optimize the icon of hero tag control, just to make it a little bit, I think, more obvious that a control hero is a control hero. All right. Let's get into the skill adjustments, starting with next month's Hero Quest hero, Anna. Anna deals damage to a single enemy with an increased chance to inflict burn. Up to 100%. This decreases the reliance that she's going to have on effect hit and increases the amount of attack and mastery that you can stack on her instead, right? So this is a positive change for her. Fire Strike deals 200 attack damage to the enemy target and 2 random enemies with an increased chance to inflict more burn. Now remember, you inflict burn once. Then when you inflict it a second time, it detonates, dealing 300% attack damage to that character. So, for example, Fire Strike could hit somebody for 200% attack damage, and then when it applies burn, explode that burn for an additional 300% attack damage for a total of 500% attack damage. Now that has to add together, right? So somebody has to have applied burn. So let's say she's applied burn on her basic attack. That's 200% damage. Then, let's say she hits again. Let's just say it's with the basic attack for another 200% damage. That burn detonates for an extra 300% damage. So now she's done 700% damage over 2 turns. Take the average of that to see how relatively strong this is, and it will average out to 350% damage per hit. That's pretty good, but it's only good if it works. And when they increase the chances of applying burn, they increase the chance that it works. Her passive skill gives her more burn damage whenever she inflicts 1 layer of burn, stackable to 10 layers. So, in longer fights, Anna is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger, up to the point where she does an extra 50% burn damage. This used to cap out at 30%, and now it's going to cap out at 50%. That's a major, major buff for Anna, who's going to be applying burn on every single turn. Anna gains 40% speed for 2 turns when she detonates burn or deals detonation damage. So what's significant about this is, because it takes 2 turns to detonate burn, assuming you don't have any other burn characters on your team, assuming it takes 2 turns for Anna to detonate burn, and she gets speed up for 2 turns, it means that Anna will always have 40% more speed. Always. Unless somebody strips it of her. But, all things being equal, Anna is going to have a permanent 40% speed buff now. That's pretty wild. Exclusive. Level 1, Fire Strike will now attack all enemies, and it increases all allies' attack by 40% for 2 turns. So she has gotten some major, major buffage to her damage. She's going to almost guarantee to land burn on a target. The burns are going to do even more damage than they used to, and because burn damage scales off of attack, then this is going to make her even deadlier than she used to be. They've also increased her exclusives for level 2 and level 3, but you know me, I usually skip these. We'll read through them to see what they do, but as far as figuring out how strong they make the character, we usually skip these because these become niche. You can almost bet that if you really want to, you can get a level 1 exclusive on a legendary character, but trying to guarantee that you get level 2 or level 3, that's whale sausage over there, right? So, level 2, they have completely changed the effect. It used to be that she increased the dot damage dealt by allies by 20% while she survived. So you could put her on a team with someone like Hez or Melia or any HP burn hero, and they just got super strong. They've changed this. Now, increases the effect of Fire Wave by 100%. Remember, Fire Wave is... I think Fire Wave is actually the Ascending Flame thing. Oh, no. Fire Wave is her ultimate, right? Increase the effect of Fire Wave by 100%, which will not be removed at wave transition. No, it is her passive skill. They just, for whatever reason, are calling it something different. So when you get her to exclusive level 2, instead of stacking by 5%, it stacks by 10%, which means she can do 100% more burn damage. That's a lot. Increases burn damage dealt by all allies by 30% while she survives. So now she's got 130% burn damage, not to mention the extra chance to burn. She's just going to burn you to a crisp. Good night, everybody. And they've changed exclusive 3. Phoenix Dance inflicts 1 layer of burn on enemy targets without burn for 2 turns and deals more attack damage, blah, blah, blah. It's new. Increases the detonation damage dealt by Phoenix Dance by 120%. That's so large. After which, there's a 100% chance to inflict 1 layer of burn on all enemies for 2 turns. So Phoenix Dance hits, it explodes on everyone, now for like 700% damage or whatever. Then, it also has a guaranteed chance to inflict burn, so on her next turn, it's going to smash everybody again. Anna is going to do a lot of damage now. A lot. If you have her, great. If not, well, still kind of hard to bank on her, but you're going to be getting 1 copy of her for free. So do with that information what you will. Olga. Olga's getting a rework that is actually very, very exciting for a lot of people. First off, they're just buffing the amount of damage that she does on her basic attack. Now you can compare this to Anna. right? So her basic attack is now going to deal 360% attack damage to a single enemy. Remember, Anna, with her detonation, now averages out to 350% damage. So very, very close to this, except that Anna also does a lot of AoE damage. If the target had an attribute debuff, she additionally increases it by 25% damage. If they're under control status, 50% more damage. So Olga stands to be able to do a lot. Her passive skill is also getting changed to guarantee her a chance to pursue an attack after an ally casts a skill that deals damage proactively. So this deals damage proactively thing, I never really understand what it means, but basically someone else on your team attacks, and then she has a 100% chance to pursue an attack for 360% more damage. That's wild. That's wild. Now, if dealing damage proactively means like when another target deals direct damage, then she also follows it up, or if it's when they do an effect that causes damage later, otherwise known as a dot. I don't know why they didn't just write that. Then she pursues and attacks. Either way, it's giving a lot more damage onto your team if she's just always pursuing and following up. Just insane. So you will have an attack character on your team that will deal, say, 300% damage. Then she comes in here and she says, oh, by the way, here's another 360% damage on top of that. And it's a guaranteed chance to happen. That's crazy. That's a lot of damage. Active skill, Light Forged Arrow. It will now deal more attack damage 4 times. So what is the actual change here? It's 35%, but it's 35% times 4. Which is 140% damage buff to a single enemy, reducing their turn meter still, and silencing them still. So basically, they've just buffed her single target damage extraordinarily so, and actually made her passive useful. They've changed her exclusive level 2 to make it so that she deals more damage to these 3 particular factions and takes less damage from them instead. So they're starting to go down this route where they're playing some factions against each other, good guys and bad guys, right? And I think she's part of the Holy Light faction, which is going to be considered the quote-unquote good guys. You heard it here. Could be wrong? We'll find out later. Elbek. Elbek is going to do a stupid amount of damage now. Elbek deals damage equal to 26% of his max HP to a single enemy. You're already stacking HP on Elbek to begin with because he's a tank and all this other kind of jazz. Now, he's going to have not only the HP that you've stacked on him, but he's going to deal an extra 6% damage. If you were able to get Elbek up to 1,000,000 HP, for example, just to keep the numbers even, then this is going to deal 260,000 damage without critting. If the attack lands a crit, he gains an additional layer of Desert Soul. And remember, Desert Soul is his passive buff that just stacks and stacks and stacks, increasing his max HP cap up to 150%. This is crazy powerful, especially if you can have him last long enough that he can stack these things up. It's entirely possible that he will get to a point where he's virtually unkillable because his health is so high that he will one-shot all of the other characters on the screen and simultaneously use his active skill to continuously leech health back to himself. His shielding is going up by another 10%, which, given that his HP cap is always so high, is going to be extraordinary. And then his Soul Outburst, dealing damage, they've increased this by another 9% of Elbek's max HP to a single enemy. The skill has 25% leech, and Elbek gains an additional 25% max HP while attacking with this skill. So let's say you've got him with enough buffs that he's got 1,000,000 HP. Sure, why not? He's going to hit for 540,000 damage on a regular attack, not a crit. He's going to leech for 25% of that, And he's going to gain an additional 25% max HP when he uses it. So actually, instead of 1 million, he'd have 1,250,000. And instead of 540,000 damage, you add another roughly 250 to that. You get basically 800,000 damage with 25% leech, meaning he just stole 200,000 life from you. It's crazy. It's crazy. They're increasing the amount of turns that Death Domain lasts on his exclusive after you get him to level 3. And Desert Soul obtained by Soul Draining Strike triples, meaning that he'll stack extra health even faster. Wild. Teru. They're doing something similar, I think. Unless this is a different character. Teru, they're changing so that they are doubling the amount of damage that he does as a percentage of his max HP. And slightly increasing the chance to inflict intertwined. Teru was already very, very useful, especially if you had him at exclusive 1 or 2. Now he's actually going to deal a lot more damage as well. And similarly to Senor Elbeck over here, he's going to hit pretty darn hard. They are reducing the cooldown of him being able to grant consolidation and heal to everybody. They're changing the passive skill to make it so that the end is the same, but it levels up a little bit faster, which I don't quite understand exactly why this. But ultimately, this is the same. The heal granted by Teru additionally restores HP by 3% of max HP. So instead of 5%, it gives you 8%. Teru grants all allies a shield by... And look at this. They changed it from 5% to 22% of Teru's max HP when an enemy is inflicted with stun by Intertwine. So it's not going to happen that often, but when it happens, it's going to be huge. And if they repeatedly obtain a shield, it'll reset the value and the duration. So if an enemy gets inflicted with stun on this turn and intertwined a couple turns later, then everybody gets a shield for 22% of Teru's max HP. Then, if on the next turn somebody gets affected by intertwined, then everybody resets that shield for 2 turns to 22% of Teru's max HP. Could be very useful if there's enough intertwine on your team. I still don't think there's going to be to make it really make a difference, but it is probably, you are probably going to feel this at least once or twice in a given battle. And given that it's passive, that might be pretty nice. Active skill. They've increased the chance to inflict intertwined on all enemies for 2 turns. Cool. So you don't have to rely on as much effect hit as before, but you're still going to need some. Afterwards, deals damage to all enemies by almost twice as much of Teru's max HP. The more targets with intertwined, the higher the damage, up to 30% of Teru's max HP. They basically doubled the amount of damage that this ability does to all heroes. But the skill cannot land a crit. Alright, fine. Whatever. Essentially, they've made him stronger. Exclusive level 1. Teru will grant all allies consolidation 2 and a shield by 20% if you have them at exclusive 1. Before, what this would do is it would only grant that benefit to Teru. So you'd give him up to exclusive 1, he would cast Giant Tree Shield, and everyone would get consolidation 1 and just the basic shield, and then he would get consolidation 2 and a bigger shield. They've changed that so now everyone gets consolidation 2 and a bigger shield. Level 2, they've completely changed it, so now it restores all allies' HP by 3% of Teru's max HP when a hero is inflicted with intertwined. So if you can put together enough people on your team that will always be inflicting the enemy heroes with intertwined, then you can provide a lot of shielding on your team at all times and a lot of healing on your team at all times. But it really requires that you get those intertwines up there. Can you do that? Do you have those heroes? Probably not. Elot, basic attack, spike attack. They have changed this so that instead of dealing damage based on Elot's defense, you now deal damage based on Elot's max HP. So now people are just going to be stacking max HP on, I keep saying Elot, it's probably pronounced Ilot, but there you go. So they've taken the defense damage part away, and they've changed him similar to the other two characters to make Ilot HP based. That's the big change here. Active skill, Sanctuary Shield, increases all allies' max HP cap by 50% for 2 turns, and inflicts resist debuff on them for 1 turn. Imagine having Ilot and Elbeck on a team together. This is wild. And Elbeck is literally just going to be one-shotting everybody. Passive skill, Ilot grants an additional 42% damage reflect. This is passive skill. Basically, they've just buffed it so that more damage is reflected. I don't know that anyone was really worried about this. We'll see if it really makes a difference. Furious Smash deals damage by a percentage of Ilot's max HP to a single enemy and inflicts provoke on them for 1 turn. This skill has more leech. So Ilot and Elbeck are actually, at this point, almost the same hero, functionally speaking. This is interesting to me because whether or not you use one or the other is basically just whether or not you get one or the other, because they're now almost identical. Are these good changes individually for each character? Yes, they are. I think we could argue they are unilaterally positive changes for each of these characters, but are they good for the game at large? I don't know, because now you have 2 characters that are basically exactly the same, so they're going to be fighting for the same resources in terms of gear. They'd be fighting for the same resources, well, basically, yeah, in terms of gear, right? Exclusive level 1, grant all allies a shield according to Ilot's max HP. Level 2, Ilot has a 50% chance to counterattack when taking direct damage, is guaranteed to counterattack if the attacker's HP is below 50%. They added that this can be stacked with the buff counterattack. I don't know why they would have added this, unless beforehand they said you could not stack it with counterattack. But if he had counterattack before, wouldn't it have been the same? I don't really understand this unless it's just for clarity's sake, because I think you could always do this. And when he counterattacks, he's going to be doing this over here, reducing effect hit by 50%. Spread that out around. Take that, Hazonia teams, which is, I think, a lot of what they're trying to change. Level 3, after Furious Smash, increases the damage by an additional 20% based on the target's lost HP, and slash the target directly if their HP is below 25%. I believe that slash the target directly means kill them. In which case, this is very, very strong, but it's also a level 3 exclusive. So are you likely to get it? No. If you do get it, good for you. Put Ilot on your team and just smash everybody. Okay, Frick. They are buffing the amount of damage that Frick does by 10%. Honestly, I don't think anyone will feel that. I don't think that'll feel like a big buff at all. With a 40% chance to inflict provoke for 1 turn from 30%. I don't think anybody's going to feel this change at all. Because if you were using Frick and you wanted this to work, you were already smashing effect hit on him. The one little change is this 10% difference on your chance to inflict provoke may mean that you can change a piece of gear around to give you more defense, and thus you will start to feel this a little bit more, but in general, I don't think anybody's likely to feel this. Hammer of Rampage, active skill, deals less damage to all enemies, but with an increased chance to reduce their attack by 40% for 2 turns, and a chance to reduce their critical damage by 60% for 2 turns. Overall, this definitely makes Frick more supporty. So they've taken the damage down by 40%. But I don't know that anyone's really going to notice that, because 160% wasn't that high to begin with. So now it's 120%. Yeah, he'll hit a little bit more like a noodle, but I think that you'll get more out of the fact that there's a greater chance that the enemy's attack and critical damage have been reduced, making him a more effective support champion than he was before. Passive skill, Rage Absorption. This is an interesting one. I had to read this a couple of times before I actually understood what it meant. Doesn't matter what it did before. Let's read what it's going to do now. Reduce all damage received by 60%. That's huge. But each time Frick takes direct damage, it'll heal him for 4% of his max HP and grant him 1 layer of Overwhelming Anger, which increases all of the damage that Frick receives by 10%, up to 15 layers. So if you hit Frick enough times, this will get up to 150% extra damage, minus his 60% that he reduces for an extra 90% damage. However, at the beginning of each of his turns, it will remove 4 layers of Overwhelming Anger. So there's an increased need for you to make Frick go as fast as possible, because the enemy needs to attack him 6 times to remove all of his damage reduction. And then after that, you're doing extra damage. But if you can get your Frick to go fast enough, then he can remove layers faster than the enemy can put them on. Especially if you consider things like not every character on the enemy team is going to be dealing damage on every single one of their turns. Take, for example, Catherine. Catherine has 2 active abilities that do not deal damage. How about healers like Liz? Liz has 2 active abilities that do not deal damage. If you come up with a turn where both of them, for example, are buffing their team, then the other 3 people on your team deal damage to Frick, but they each deal damage once, then on Frick's turn, he's going to remove the 3 stacks of Overwhelming Anger that you applied, plus an extra one possibly from a turn before. So if you can get your Frick to go fast enough, then it's entirely possible that you can have the majority of this benefit for a long time, making Frick very hard to kill. Active skill Fury. Inflict taunt on self for 2 turns, restore all allies' HP by 18%, and then grant them a shield by less of Frick's max HP. What they have done here is essentially they have traded in the shield for healing instead. I think they've also increased the amount of taunt he gets by 1 turn. So overall, this is a net benefit. You may have said like, well, but they used to get 40% shield. Well, there's a lot of problems with this. For one, shield only lasts for 2 turns. Secondly, shield is a buff, and buffs can be removed. Max HP has to actually be chunked away. So, losing the shield in order to gain max HP and still get half the shield value, roughly, that you were getting before, about 1/3 the shield value you were getting before, it's actually probably a pretty solid change. Gonna make Frick more useful. Useful enough for you to put in your crew? Probably not, but possibly so, depending on how many exclusives you can get. Hammer of Rage reduces all enemies' turn meters by 15%, or 25% if it also successfully reduces their attack. So this is this skill here. This can be especially useful when combined with his passive skill, because on his turn he'll remove 4 layers of Overwhelming Anger. If you can remove enough of the enemy's turn meter that Frick can get ahead in the turn progression, it means that he can get around to his turn quickly enough to remove 4 more layers of Overwhelming Anger if necessary. So this could actually be very, very strong. Level 2, at the beginning of each turn, remove all layers of Overwhelming Anger, each of which increases all damage received by 7% now. So instead of a maximum of 150, this now has a maximum of 105%. So at its highest level, Frick is basically going to take normal damage, Otherwise, he's always going to have some sort of damage reduction on. This could actually be really, really useful, but you do have to get all the way to exclusive 2 to get it. So are you likely to get it? Probably not. Level 3. Fury removes all debuffs from self and grants self-resist debuff for 2 turns before restoring HP. Besides, the value of the shield granted by Fury now increases to 30% of Frick's max HP. That buffs this ability right here. So basically when he casts it, he has no Moss debuffs, and he is now immune to debuffs, and he is taunted. So you won't be able to increase the damage that he takes. You won't be able to stun him. You won't be able to do anything useful to him. He's got taunt. He's got a lot of HP. He's increased his own health and given himself a shield that's twice as big. So if you can actually get him up here, then this is going to make Frick quite a useful tank. Otherwise, we'll see. But getting legendaries to exclusive 3 is tough beans. Amalek, our final champion to discuss. Amalek, active skill, Smite. They have increased the amount of attack damage that this does pretty significantly. This is a 50% increase in the amount of attack damage that Amalek's basic is going to do. 220% attack damage is certainly not the highest for attack characters in the game, but it's nothing to sneeze at either, especially because it was only 140% before. Additionally, it is going to reduce their turn meter by 75% with a 100% chance to inflict freeze for 1 turn. Removing turn meter by 75% is essentially like removing their turn meter to almost 0. If your Amalek is fast enough or faster than the enemy champion, it's very, very possible that this now means Amalek gets to go twice in a row. At least against that one other champion, right? Because it's only damage to a single champion. They've also changed Amalek's passive skill, Keen Edge. Each stage of Amalek's damage inflicts 1 layer of sword aura. Remove all layers of sword aura when a target has up to 3 layers, right? If you have this fully upgraded. Then inflict freeze on them. And Amalek is guaranteed to land a crit on targets under freeze status. So another build path for Amalek, right? We want to get effect hit up at least to 25% to get that turn meter reduction chance up to 100. Then we're going to want to buff his attack damage and critical damage, especially if there is this 100% chance to inflict freeze all the time. It means that there's likely to be frozen characters on the board at all times, so you can pretty much always choose somebody to get a guaranteed crit against. Active skill, Clean Sweep. They've doubled the amount of damage that it does to all enemies. All the rest of it stays the same. So all in all, they've made Amalek just hit harder. So if Amalek was on your bench because you were concerned that Amalek didn't do enough damage, well, they've doubled the amount of damage that Amalek does. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to change things enough to make Amalek anywhere close to a meta-bending character, because it also requires that there be freeze on the board, which means that if you have no other champions that can inflict freeze, that Amalek will only have a guaranteed crit at best every other turn. And if the enemy has resisted the freeze effect, or if they're immune to the freeze effect, or if they've had it cleansed, like by Ben Austin's ultimate, then there will be nobody with freeze. So you really will have to pair Amalek with characters that can inflict freeze in order to really feel the difference here and really make Amalek useful. Otherwise, it's not going to change whether or not you put Amalek on your team. They've also changed the level 3 exclusive. After Clean Sweep deals 1 additional stage of 140% attack damage or 280% attack damage to targets under freeze status. So first, you have to get Amalek up to exclusive level 3. Then you have to make sure that there's enough other characters on your team that you can reliably inflict freeze in order for this extra damage to happen. So where could this be useful? It's not going to be useful against bosses, because bosses are completely immune to freeze. So Amalek is still not going to be any more useful for anything relying on your ability to defeat bosses. But in PvP, this means a Moloch might be very, very powerful, especially on a team with someone like Tuck, if you have Tuck's exclusive 1 and you can freeze the whole enemy team. So, there you go, folks. Them's the patch notes. What did you think? Did I miss something? Did I analyze something incorrectly? Do you have opinions that differ from my own? Well, you're likely to share them. Likely? Welcome. You're welcome to share them. Tell me I'm wrong. It's part of what I enjoy from other people. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed us going through the patch notes today.